We have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have an agenda. I don't think we have a lot to vote on according to Will. But we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And at this time, I would entertain any business from the audience. And that's, I guess, where we would acknowledge the letter that we received here.
Yes, everyone should have received a letter from Megan Ramey in their email.
And I apologize if this was emailed out. I hadn't seen it, but there's a reference in here about a video.
That was I think a video that Megan wanted everyone to watch. It wasn't something that staff had put together for this meeting.
And let's give everyone a chance to read that letter and see if there's any questions. Maybe you can lead us with any direction or thoughts that you have about the.
Yeah, Megan has conveyed these concerns to me as well. We put a lot of care into the design of the roundabout and its lane configuration. I believe Dustin had several meetings with the URAC and with the URA board going through different designs of the roundabout. And we got a second opinion from Structure Point as well, who aided MIG in that. Structure Point specializes in roundabout design. And so why it's built to the size that it is really because it is the linchpin to making the lane, the traffic change configuration work well. And we really want 13th to flow well so that people aren't incentivized to go onto 12th Street. And that 12th Street is that pedestrian speed, bike friendly, walkable neighborhood. And so we don't want backups and slowdowns on 13th so that people affirmatively choose that street. In addition, that will be the route that emergency vehicles move through the district. So that's another reason why we don't want queuing or major backups on that intersection. All that being said, it is designed based on a look out to 2040 and assumptions about vehicle volumes and future vehicle growth, right? It's to accommodate growth in the city and growth in traffic volumes. We will definitely double check those assumptions and not build something bigger than we need to when we actually go to design it. But we do want to get the space and the, especially if it would need to be enlarged in the future. We want to make sure that there's a footprint for it today to accommodate however big it needs to be in the future.
Mm-hmm. And she acknowledges some acquisition and purchase of properties and things like that. I know Dustin isn't here. I think he had conversation with the one property owner, but I believe there's 3 adjacent properties that are affected.
That's right. And an item number 2 on my item today is actually discussing the purchase of one of the parcels.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. So let's, are there any questions from fellow URAC members about this letter or any further conversation? Okay. Then everyone received the agenda via email. Are there any additions or corrections to our agenda for this evening? Item 4, flying along before we turn it over to the meat and potatoes of tonight's meeting, I would entertain an approval of our minutes from our last meeting. Entertain a motion to accept our minutes. I'm not exactly sure what I just said.
Awesome.
All in favor? Passes unanimously. And Will, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Chair Trumbull and members of the advisory committee. First item is to talk about West Side Urban Renewal District and the start of the 5-year action plan. So the West Side Urban Renewal District, the creation of it, creating the plan and the report, that was done with the assistance of Elaine Howard and Echo Northwest. And part of that same contract was after creation of the West Side District to do a 5-year action plan to focus in on what are we going to do first and kind of bring it down into focus into real actions. So I have the scope of work for the 5-year action plan in your packet. I just wanted to hit on it piece by piece really quick at a kind of summary level, but then answer questions. And also what I'm really hoping for is just feedback from the advisory committee on where you want to be plugged in and any ideas about engagement or expectations that you have are noted and taken into account. So task number 1 is to do a public engagement plan. The West Side Urban Renewal District is more than even all the other districts. It's just primarily made as a funding source to plug into existing plans, where the Heights, the waterfront, and downtown kind of had project ideation built in with the plan themselves. All the projects that the West Side Urban Renewal District funds are existing projects in the TSP, the Parks Multi-Jurisdictional Master Plan, and the Hood River Affordable Housing Strategy. So to some extent, each one of those plans have been vetted, had extensive community engagement and involvement to generate those list of projects, which makes it somewhat of a challenge to think about what is the correct amount of public engagement to do now, while still also honoring the amount of public engagement that went into those plans to begin with. So that's what we're going to tackle with this engagement plan. And I think the emphasis is really going to be on not doing a bunch of engagement now to prioritize or to adjust the projects, but to create a standard operating procedure of when we do implement an affordable housing project, when we do move forward with a park, what are we going to do? How are we going to telegraph out to the world and make clear how we're going to engage with them, and what will be the level of involvement, and also kind of how much will we be delegating decision-making authority to the input that we receive? Kind of be real clear and transparent and deliberate and well telegraphed in our public engagement. And so that's what a lot of this task is going to be, is creating those, do reach out to these people in these ways, in this many different language formats, give us a standard operating procedure to follow as we implement the plan. That being said, I think there will be also some public engagement right now, kind of setting up focus groups, setting up target groups. We're thinking probably we'd want to have a focus group of construction builders, people who live in the affordable housing that already exists on the west side, and the mobile home parks, as well as maybe small business owners, and just create those focus groups now and do some initial just engagement and informational exchange, but kind of set them up as kind of build the relationships and the trust now so that they're there and they exist when we actually start implementing projects. And to a large extent, we're not going to be in full control of what projects we do first, because when we do an affordable housing project, or when we do a park, or when we build a road, is going to be when is a piece of land available, when has enough tax increment been generated. It's not going to necessarily just be based on public opinion, if that makes sense. And then task number 2 is to do a constructability analysis of the west side. What that's going to do is break the west side up into sub areas of similar zoning, similar infrastructure needs, similar development constraints, and look at what does it cost to build. We know that housing is not being built on the west side. It's kind of locked up right now. This will help us discern in an objective economic way. Is that because land is too expensive? Is it because it's too expensive to build offsite infrastructure? Is it because city fees and planning processes are too slow? We're going to build that out and look at what is the term that they use is find the residual value that's on the west side. And an example, I put a link to an example of constructability analysis from Newport, and you can see it, some places in Newport, and I expect some places on the west side, because of the cost of infrastructure and the cost to build, actually have negative value. This kind of sounds it doesn't sound very logical because we think of land as being so valuable here in the gorge. But if you look at it, actually costs you more to build than you can sell the finished product. You actually have negative value, and that will be really useful for us as we think about what incentives should be targeted where, and where our investments in public infrastructure get us the most bang for our buck. It's a pretty dense subject, so does that generally make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Then next up is do a financial capacity analysis and project sequencing. The West Side plan itself had a long-term financial analysis that substantiated its authorized maximum indebtedness of 146 million. This will zero in on the next 5 years and look at what could we realistically borrow in the near term to do an initial project or initial couple of projects. The fourth task is building a construction incentive program. And this was specifically a recommendation in the affordable housing strategy that looked at, so we have like 780 Rand Road, which we directly purchased the land. We did an RFP for affordable housing developer. It's going to be regulated affordable. It's going to be run by the housing authority. And that's going to be affordable at the 60% of area median income and below, regulated. But we also know that just generally there's a donut hole of housing that's affordable between 80% of area median income and 120% of area median income. It's commonly referred to as missing middle housing. So this is going to look at, we know that housing product is not being generated on the west side or really anywhere in Hood River. Are there any modest incentives that can be offered that would change the calculus for builders where they may choose to build something more modest, maybe something in the 1,200 square feet or 1,000 square feet housing product, which is not low income and not cheap by any means, but is at least less expensive than a 2,400 square foot house, 3,000 square foot house, which is what the market right now is choosing to build on the west side. And that's going to be led by, we have a Willamette MBA team who is going to do that initial work and research for us. And then lastly, the final task is getting our performance metrics. So thinking about what, if we are successful, we should see what on the west side. We should see, likely, at least not a deterioration and perhaps an improvement in the income levels that live on the west side. Acres of park, miles of trail. What are the measures that we're going to say if we're moving the dial on these? The west side plan is on the right track. So those are the tasks. I wanted to answer any questions and also ask kind of where the advisory committee wants check-ins and involvement.
You had mentioned within the 5 years potentially having funds to fund a project or two. Do you expect the growth of our tax base there? Is the 5 years just to allow our taxes to be collected and grow?
No. Well, so natural growth without any catalyzed development, right? Probably will generate, I'm expecting between $50,000 and $70,000 in growth in year one, double that and about 100 to 120,000 after that, and kind of going up at that pace. and that's certainly enough to borrow against today. Urban renewal, the deal that we make to the overlapping districts is, right, we're going to make strategic investments now that's going to catalyze new growth that wouldn't have happened otherwise. And we're going to pay back the loan, any loans that we take out based on that new growth that wouldn't have happened otherwise. So conceptually, the library shouldn't be out any money. The Parks and Rec District shouldn't be out any money. But that only works if you borrow and catalyze new development. So I like to say, if we're paying cash, we're doing it wrong. So hopefully we can think of a strategic way to get ahead and really insert a public investment in a way that's going to spur some new tax growth.
Questions, just comments. One on part one of that, I think you're doing it exactly right. The transparency of the process has been really nice and clear and easy to follow. Given that the new project, the West Side project, is effectively just a vetted tool that we've already seen great success with. So spending a lot of time advertising it, it's probably not time well spent, but keep on the same track with communicating with people. And then on topic 4, because I commend you for bringing along the graduate studies program to help with that. That's a really cool thing, I think, and I think a lot of people will buy into that. And it's commendable to try to find the hurdles that are stopping people from building affordable housing. There are in myriad, I suppose, with my experience. So I think that's a helpful thing to do too.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you.
We're building, I have one question, just to be clear, I may be a little dense with them today, but this 5-year action plan, this is what you hope to get done in 5 years, or this plan is looking at first what you want to do in the first 5 years of the urban renewal district?
Yeah, what we want to do, I was talking about it, I had the actually first kind of planning meeting with Echo Northwest on getting going on this, and we were kind of thinking through that a bit. And the way I conceptualize in my mind, see if this resonates with you, is we think about kind of what projects would we line up to like have a balance between tax increment generation and also then like good uses, like affordable housing and parks aren't going to really grow tax increment. So getting the mix of sequencing, but then knowing that you probably will put a timeline to it, but knowing that it's all going to be driven by tax increment. And so thinking of it as an accordion, right? It's going to accordion, we can really drive new development. It's going to we'll get to do stuff that maybe faster than we think. And if things slow, we'll know that we have to accordion out. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Any other questions, or would you like me to move on to the Heights property purchase? So Heights Street State Plan adopted via resolution 2024 URA-01 just in the last URA meeting. So it's now been formally adopted into the Heights Urban Renewal Plan and eligible for urban renewal funding, all the projects that are in it. Through the process of just being public with the plan, talking about the plan, and people seeing it and thinking about how it impacts them, the owners of 1217 May Street reached out to us that they have, it is an investment property for them that they use for short-term rental, like Airbnb. And they had been wanting to make investments into it to make it more marketable, but if it was going to eventually be used for a roundabout, they wanted to contact us to talk about timing and think about whether or not they actually wanted to do that or not. After discussing with them that this is really conceptual, we still have a jurisdictional transfer, could be 5+ years out that the roundabout is done, and we really can't give them much guidance at this point. they just said, well, would you want to buy it from us? So we always prefer to buy from a willing seller. We definitely don't need the property right now. But getting it from a willing seller saves us an immense amount of money, time, if we had to go through eminent domain negotiations and process at a later date. So he said we'd be happy to talk with them and negotiate. What they are agreeable to is 10% over the appraised value of the property. And a closing sometime between July 1st, 2024 and June 30th, 2025. And what that gives us is we get to buy it in a fiscal year that we've budgeted to buy it, which is useful for us, and also gives them time. They're a busy family with kids and activities, and they just wanted flexibility to kind of move out on their own schedule. So they were happy and amenable to this deal, and we think it's good for the city as well to get it from a willing seller. Once we own it, we'll probably put it in some sort of productive purpose, long-term rental or something like that, just while we wait till we actually need it.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Hopefully that is contagious.
Mhm.
The neighbors.
That's interesting. I don't know the property address, but I was this who Dustin talked to, or I think it was the
Yeah.
property to the west.
Dustin's talked to those people as well. They're not wanting to sell right now. No. Mhm.
And this is the middle, it's not the house on the corner, it's.
Right next to it. Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, that's super. It's good luck.
Yeah. So this one, I was actually hoping for a formal vote and a recommendation that I could carry on to the Urban Renewal Agency Board.
Mhm.
Entertain a motion.
And move that we. What do we say? We agree to that.
Support it.
Support it, yes.
For the principal, yeah, that's that property that the details that you shared.
1217 Main Street.
1217 for 616,000. So we have a motion, we have a second.
One second.
Okay, any further conversation? All in favor? Passes unanimous. That's I like what you said about hopefully it's contagious. It was the neighbor to the west that Dustin had talked to, and I remember his conversations that they seemed understanding of, I guess, the city's plight. So hopefully they'll look to this as an opportunity, and this will fall into place as well.
That's a win-win for sure. That's just terrific.
Yeah.
It's good for them because they move on to something that they can count on.
So property acquisition, just for clarification, comes out of the urban renewal money.
Out of the heights. Yep.
Yeah, rental income.
Will be program income into the heights.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Should I move on to the waterfront maximum indebtedness increase? Okay. So this is not, when I put together my 6-month work plan that we discussed a couple meetings ago, this wasn't on my radar, but it is very timely and to whether or not we want to extend the life of the waterfront district or not. And I wanted to make sure that it didn't just pass by without us taking an affirmative action and decision point. So wanted to bring up kind of the issues and the pros and the cons. So the Urban Renewal Agency Board adopted Resolution 2020-04, which dedicated all remaining maximum indebtedness of the waterfront to the stormwater line first, gave the waterfront stormwater line first priority. Actually, would it be helpful if I went to the history of the stormwater line, or is everyone? Okay.
It's been a while.
Yeah. I think it was in 2019. I remember walking in here and just hearing that there was a sinkhole in the waterfront. And what was that the original stormwater line when the waterfront was built with trailings from the creation of the dams was put in there not really cognizant of any future development patterns, and so it runs underneath buildings. You always want your infrastructure in the roadway. But development was allowed to occur over top of this stormwater line that was put in the, don't quote me on this, but 40s or 50s. Was end of life and had collapsed and had created a sinkhole that was endangering the foundation of Hood River Distillers. So we needed to jump into action and begin to replace this, and kind of there's just an emergent situation and there was no plan for its replacement. I think the city believed that the port was owned it and was responsible for it, and the port thought that the city owned it and was responsible for it. And instead of basically two governments, duking it out and fighting over it, we said, we'll take responsibility and we'll get it done. And in order to not have it affect utility rates and citywide ratepayers be on the hook for this, we asked the Urban Renewal Agency if they'd want to dedicate the waterfront funds for that. And that's what led to that resolution that basically dedicated all remaining funds. Phase one of that project was completed, moved away from the collapsed section and into the roadway. I believe that was done a couple years ago. And the phase two, which is moving the is it 8th Street? Anyway, moving it kind of over to the street that goes by the wastewater treatment plant, and then moving where the outfall is along the western property line of the park. That's happening right now as we speak. So phase two, phase three is going to be in downtown, and it's going to do a lot more on-site treatment of downtown, and then route water. Downtown used to route into a culvert and into the pipe that went through the waterfront. It's going to route it more over to where the hook is. And the reason for this downtown portion is if we can get the water away from the waterfront, we don't have to do such big pipes in the waterfront, and it actually makes the whole project cheaper. And then phase three will be on more over towards Hood River Juice and Shepherds, getting back into the right of way. So phase one is done, phase two is almost done. Phase 3 and 4 will happen next year. We've got DEQ, we got a DEQ grant, we got federal ARPA dollars, American Rescue Plan dollars, and we've got the waterfront monies. All of those put together is probably sufficient to pay for the project. But the cost of this project has changed significantly over time, and it's not unlikely, very possible that costs could increase. And if costs increase, the sole kind of funding source of last resort is the stormwater utility. So since the Urban Renewal Agency wanted to protect the stormwater utility ratepayers by using urban renewal funds in 2020, we wanted to ask, do you want to increase the life of the urban renewal district in order to create basically an insurance policy? It's basically a risk management that if the project does increase in cost, there will be urban renewal funds available to pay for it. And unfortunately, while we won't know if the project is going to increase in cost for another year or two, before it's done, we do have our one last remaining ability to increase the life of the district this fiscal year. Otherwise, it's going to end, and all of its funds are going to fall back to the overlapping districts. So unfortunately, we have to make this decision now. If we do increase, we have the ability to increase the maximum indebtedness by 2.15 million, which is it's a 20% increase, inflation adjusted, is the kind of quickest way to explain it. And that only requires the city council's approval, although there is a very long process of notifying everyone in the city, actually, and having meetings with the county board of commissioners, planning commission. Getting overlapping districts need to have time to comment as well. all that's gonna take about 4 months, and so we have to get moving on it now if we want the chance to keep this district alive. If we did increase the maximum indebtedness by 2.15 million, we'll probably add about 2 years to the lifespan of the district. And page 19 of your packet shows how much revenue the overlapping districts will forego annually for those 2 years. So the city will, if you take no action, the urban waterfront district ends this fiscal year, and next fiscal year, the city will see an additional $230,000 in revenue. The Parks District will see an additional $29,000 in revenue. Library District, an additional $32,000 in revenue, and the tables there. That new money, that new revenue flow will be pushed out 2 years if we decide to increase the maximum indebtedness of the waterfront. It's a difficult decision because it's not for sure that we'll need it. It really is an insurance policy. But if we don't need it, that money can be returned. We can just send it back to the tax assessor and say, give it back to the overlapping districts, or we can use it for other waterfront urban renewal projects that didn't get done because we had spent all this money on the stormwater line.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
You mentioned kind of the phasing, like 3 and 4 moving the stormwater from the city. Is the stormwater not geographically confined to the port property?
No, yeah.
As pipes touch pipes there, or?
Yeah, because I think kind of rewind all the way back to the 1920s, right? There was the interstate was the shoreline. And so all the runoff from downtown used to outfall into the Columbia River right there, roughly where the interstate is. But the creation of the waterfront district meant that all that stormwater then went into the pipes in the waterfront district before going out to the Columbia River.
So I know because of the jurisdictions with our other renewal districts, it's usually just properties within that geographical area, but it's because the pipes go through that area. Is that kind of a loose understanding of why we can use the funds from the waterfront for the city?
That's correct. Although I should have mentioned the downtown urban renewal district has allocated $2 million for the downtown portion.
Okay. And then my other question, and then I'll let all of you ask questions. What direction does Kevin, our port commission, our CEO of the port, want us to do? What is his suggestion?
I didn't ask the port commission specifically for a recommendation. They do have 2 members of the commission sit as permanent members of the governing body. So they will vote on this when it goes to the urban renewal agency board, the 2 port commissioners that sit on our URA board.
And maybe this has changed. I thought he had asked us at some meeting some time ago to sunset the waterfront and to make a special district just for.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to speak for the port, but I don't think it's very controversial to say I think they want this to extend and us to spend extra money on the development of lot 1. Yeah.
It doesn't look like they're going to forego a lot of money.
Yeah.
With the port.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Conversation.
Did you say that if this doesn't pass, that then the any additional funds that go into the project are shouldered by the businesses? Is that the situation, or the people that use stormwater rates?
Stormwater, yeah, it would go on to the stormwater utility fund, right? That's because that's the local source of funds that we have complete control over. Yes, that's kind of we're always looking for additional grants and additional outside sources of funding, and we won't stop doing that. But without any new money kind of falling out of the sky, and if project costs increase, the one place that the city unilaterally has control over is the stormwater fund.
Yeah. And that would include rate increases. So yeah.
Or deferment of other capital projects.
Yeah, okay. Let's try to clarify.
Thank you. Making the, yeah. Making
Thanks
it.
for the history of the water route too. It's interesting. I've been following it all the time. It's interesting. And I feel like this situation is unfortunate from the get-go, but if the insurance is not that expensive in this case, it's probably really worth it, especially if we decide to save a few bucks, don't do it, then we'll definitely need it. So, yeah, that's the word.
I think it was 2019 that we, as an advisory council, suggested to help fund the, and Will, you did a great job of explaining who owned the responsibility of fixing it, but there was a lot of kicking the can down the road. And at that time, which I agreed with, and I agree now, I felt like it was a great use of urban renewal funds, even though it doesn't fix light, it doesn't put up lamp posts, but it does make the property effective within that geographical corridor. You know, so, but as chair, I want to entertain any more conversation, and we have two suggested motions down below here. I'll just kind of read through it. It would be a suggestion for us to have the agency support or to not support the maximum indebtedness, increase the maximum indebtedness and increase the another 2 years of tax order.
Yep.
So that's the ask here, is either for us to basically continue support because we've already shouldered a significant amount of support from the or to not.
It's just a piece of that.
Right.
Yes, I move, how about I move the urban renewal, agency, well, sorry, just trying to read. I move that the urban renewal advisory committee support an increase in the waterfront district's maximum indebtedness. So I think preventing future sinkholes counts as prevent blight or fixing.
And what Will said is on the agency board there are 3 board commissioners. So if we make a recommendation that they don't like, they're not going to find out decisions. Okay. Do we have a second?
I will say that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I don't know if I'm doing this right or not. As chair, I never make a motion.
Right.
Okay, good. I got it right.
Yep.
Thank you. And I also try not to steer one direction or another. So good. We'll let you move on to the next action item.
Great. That was a unanimous yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Last is just general verbal administrator update. Only 2 additional news items I have is you remember we're reevaluating the governing board with the phase out of the waterfront eventual and the new West Side district. The port commissioners thought that it was the port has said that they think it's appropriate for them to cede their permanent positions, and the urban renewal agency board and the city council thought it was interested in reaching out to other overlapping districts who may have more of an interest on the west side and the Heights too, which is really going to be where the activity is. So they requested that I ask all the overlapping districts what their interest in a board seat would be on the URA board. And so I did that about a month ago. Some overlap, so there's like the school district, the library district, the transportation district, all those folks, county. All said that they would get back, they would talk it over with their boards and they would get back to me. The library and the transit district have invited me to present at their board meetings on the latter half of February. So I'll go kind of explain this and ask for their input. And then I'll bring that back in March to the city council. It does, the member, it's kind of funny, but the membership of the Urban Renewal Agency board is dictated by the city council. So I'm kind of doing this on behalf of the city council, and that's where it will come, the question will come back to, because the makeup of the urban renewal agency board is set by municipal code. So I just want to give you an update though on how that's moving along. And then I'm gonna have my first meeting with ODOT about jurisdictional transfer of the heights on February 21st. So I'll give you, just want to let you know that was coming, but I'll give you an update how that goes.
Good luck.
Thanks.
No question, with the board, members on the urban renewal board, would they stay on, I assume, if the urban renewal waterfront? I guess.
Probably not, no.
Right.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I guess we're item 6. Items from members. I think Parks and Rec would be a good partner for the for hope they express some interest, and this is kind of outside of the scope of any of our projects, but I was riding my bike home the other day and I rode down Indian Creek, and I'm curious as to when that Deckman property will open up to Broken T. I know that they finally were granted access, and that was one of them. Do you know?
I don't know when, but I'm excited about that as well. When I first moved to the gorge, that was an idea, and I was like, oh, that's not going to even happen in my lifetime. And now it is. So, but I don't know the exact timeline.
In my trail tools.
Yeah. Very good. Anything else? Any word on the street or in Heights business land, or what we're doing up there? Or... Has Justin had any conversations with the triangle piece?
Like Belmont?
Yeah, you in Belmont.
No, once we get this property transaction finished up with 1217, it's on my list to reach out to that property owner and just make them aware. Actually, all the property owners that may be impacted, just make them aware of what happened and let them know that lines of communication are open.
So there's still not a timeline about
No,
anything happens.
no, especially the Belmont Triangle, that is after the roundabout. And the round, and we just don't have enough, we don't have control or the money for the roundabout yet, so. Yeah.
And I don't know, I feel like I miss meetings, maybe it just miss things, but was there smaller stuff we're gonna start trying to do, or just?
Yeah, the enhanced crosswalks, with bulb outs and flashing beacons at crossing at Taylor and A Street. That's first up in the implementation plan. That's within available resources. If I can just get permission from ODOT, we are off to the races for that.
Well, I mean, I think we all remember when they took away all the crosswalks.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. All right. Wonderful. Is there anything else? Go ahead and move on to item number 7, which is random state and
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, Will.
Oh, I have no idea what I said. I was just like, all of a sudden,